I would like to introduce to you the chair of our board, Mr. Ron Adams.
Hey, good morning. Those of you who can hear me and those of you who can't, work harder at it because I've got an opportunity to present just a little bit. First, I'd like to introduce the members of the board that are here with me. Jean Bidstrup said, Ron, are you speaking pretty soon? And I said, I think I'm on first. And she said, I have to make a phone call. So so she is Jean represents Happy Valley and sort of I-205 that way. There are 7 of us on the board. I am chair this year, Westland, Wilsonville generally. Jane Reed is here with us. And she has Estacada and what she calls the big purple zone out there, and a lot of country and coyotes. And Judy Urban, who is in Gladstone. Chris Groner could not be with us this morning. He's Oregon City. And who did I leave out? Oh, Carlotta Collette is no longer in Zone 1. That's Milwaukee, and we're in the process of replacing her. They, you know, there's always somebody that misses the dress code. Some of those emails don't touch all of us, is all I can say. There are 3 things that I kind of like to do. One of them's dumb little jokes. Another is I'm kind of a political junkie, and then also just I'm a sports fan. So with no further ado, I ought to tell you about the cowboy who is going into heaven, and he stops at the pearly gates, and St. Peter is visiting with him. And St. Peter says, is there any particular thing that you'd like to share with us about your life, some event? And the cowboy says, well, there was this time up in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I was on vacation, and I happened into this restaurant, and this gang of bikers was harassing this person that was serving, the young lady. And I told them that I didn't think that was very appropriate, and they just kind of giggled at me. So I said, why don't we step outside? And we did. And as soon as we got outside, I turned to the biggest, ugliest, hairiest one of the bunch. I hit him as hard as I could. I kicked over his bike and I ripped out his nose ring. And then I turned and said, okay, who's next? And St. Peter is obviously very, very impressed with this and said, that's quite a story. When did all this happen? And the cowboy said, about 3 minutes ago. So along that line, the 3 reminds me that there was a candidate who said that, very recently it was on the internet, so it has to have been an actual quote, that this presidential election will be determined by one 3-letter word: jobs. J-O-B. Yeah, whatever. Which gets me to what I really wanted to talk about this morning, and that's the job of your elected board of education here at Clackamas Community College. And when I first came on the board, the purple is because I've been here 9 years, and I really thought about 3 things. I thought about access, and I thought about, okay, once we've got them registered, quality education, and then completion. So those 3 things were, and you know, FTE is always in there, but they were kind of the point as far as I was concerned. I've added to that. And the thing that strikes me is, as hard as all of us, all of you work to get a student in, that get them in, get them registered, shouldn't we be paying the same attention to keeping them moving forward? I call it retention. Others just, you know, whatever it takes, perseverance and so forth. But I did have one statistic, if I could find my glasses under my hat. Why does it take us 36,190 head count to get 8,941 FTE. That's an awful lot of folks that were fighting to get in so hard, and then somehow, and there are a lot of good reasons, I understand those, but shouldn't we be spending the same amount of time on that retention? The other recent addition to my thought process is more about, I've always said completion. How about success? After we help that person get the diploma, degree, certificate, then what? Are they successful in that four-year tour if they go on to college? Are they successful in their career and in life? And how can we enhance that? Within that thought, other number that I really should share, and I kind of lost it because Bill called me up here so quickly, the thought that I get a sports analogy. I used to think about this kind of sprint year to year to year, and then a marathon where doing it again. I think the job of the board is really more like a relay. If I can create that sense that 9 years ago, a wonderful person decided to leave the board, and I was elected and replaced her, and I had all these thoughts about what we do. Since then, after having been handed that torch, what legacy do I want to leave? You know, in another year or so, I will have been part of Clackamas for 20% of our existence. And what would I want to be remembered for? And I think that it really boils down to, for me, I would like to leave Clackamas a stronger place than it was when I was given this opportunity. And the way that I can show the board's commitment, my commitment to this, is to tell you about our role and how we have embraced the Imagined Clackamas. We have each of us hosted at least one, and we'll finish with the 7 board members will all have had a community engagement opportunity. See, there's a really important piece here that I'm not sure we've done well, and that is that we believe we do a heck of a job here at the school. I know we do. But what do our constituents think? How do they feel about the role that Clackamas Community College is playing? How could we be more relevant to our community? And as part of that, we're having these discussions. We will bring back the information. We will then go out in focus groups and validate what we've learned, and we will come away stronger. This is all sort of pointing toward the 50th anniversary in 2016, but that's not the end of a relay. It's sort of a marker, but where will we be, where should we be in the next 50 years? And I can't answer that question, but we are working at trying to figure out how. The other big role that you will see us playing over the next year is working with Joanne, with the legislature, to give us an even greater opportunity to continue that success. And we will play that role, we will play it well. We are looking forward to a great year as the board. It's not going to be easy, and it never is, but it will be a good year. And one thing that I really should comment on, that a huge partner of ours in this student success and college success, and in the Imagine Clackamas, is the Community College Foundation, and they are represented here this morning by my friend and their president, Scott Hamersly. Scott?
Last night I had the opportunity to sit right over there. These tables were all set up, and we had the scholarship recognition dessert where all the students who are coming here this year that have received scholarships gathered. And I don't get emotional all the time about a lot of different things, but last night a couple of the students that spoke it was amazing to think they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the scholarship that they had. And then some of the students spoke that had scholarships in past years and have gone on to get degrees and gone on to do wonderful things in the community. And it's an amazing little moment in what we do here at Clackamas. And the ones that make so much of that happen are the board, or I'm sorry, the foundation. And this year, the president of the foundation, Scott Hamersly.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. My speech won't be as eloquent or as long as Mr. Adams here. He's a great representative for the college. Just want to let you know that the foundation are your ambassadors. We work as volunteers year-round to provide opportunities for the students here. And that's just a part of it, because without you, we wouldn't be successful, because every student that spoke last night said that a teacher touched them and helped them become successful and was able to kind of be that leader or mentor that gave them that opportunity to go to the next step. So thank you all for what you're doing, and I can't wait to see what happens this next few years at Clackamas Community College. We'll be celebrating a milestone in 2016, and as a foundation board, we've got some wonderful things we'll be working on to ensure this campus continues to grow and be successful. Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to introduce to you one of our career tech students, Paulino Cervantes.
Well, I was going to come up here and had like a little speech prepared or whatever, but I think I just want to come out and be honest and say what I got to say. Before I came to school here, I was really running around the streets. I was raised, I'm the third Paulino, and the first one, he did 15 years in prison. The second one is currently doing 19 years in prison. And before I came to Clackamas Community College, I was just released from prison, probably about 3 months before I enrolled here. The reason why I'm here is from a Trade Act scholarship. I was working at Freightliner, got laid off in '05. And when I got released, I went and checked out PCC. Then I came here, met Dave Bradley, and I knew this was the place that I wanted to be. And so I started putting in the effort, started showing up early, staying late, volunteering for things. And I was given some important projects. Ended up going to the roaster show with the 57 Corvette that we had restored, me and my brother. He got best in class. Got us a lot of attention. A lot of people wanted us to work on their cars. I knew I couldn't be here forever, even though I wanted to be here forever. Because the staff, Mark and Russ, Dave, Lloyd, all these guys are, they helped out a whole lot. But so we found a shop, but I've never had no credit, no money. Mark House went with me to go see the shop, and I told the owner of the shop what my situation was, that I was a student trying to start a shop, and he told me, how do I know you're not lying to me? And Mark stepped up, said, I can vouch for him. Everything he's telling you was true. So he told me, I'll talk to you later about it. I'll call you this evening. You got to talk to my brother. So he called me back, told me that his brother and him had spoke. Turns out his brother and him were both Clackamas Community College alumni, and that they wanted to help me out. Told me that they would give me the shop with no deposit, no credit check. Still, I had no money, so I didn't know how I was going to do it. But with the help of Mark, Russ, Dave, everybody in the automotive department, basically they helped us get the money to start the shop. That's what we got now, the coupe, over on Loaded Road. So if any of you needed some body work or some paint, we're over on Loaded Road. So one thing that I heard throughout this whole time is that you guys need to connect with the students. And I know dang well the guys over there really connected, helped me change my life, but not only mine, but for generations to come. So thank you.
All right, so let's get out there and get in some minor accidents. Next student I'd like to introduce, Rachel Weiling, and she's a transfer student, and she was also a scholarship recipient last night. So, Rachel.
my name is Rachel Whiting. This will be my second year here at Clackamas Community College. I graduated from Canby High School in 2011, knowing that I would spend the next 2 years here at CCC. Although there were many motives that led me to making my decision, the number one reason I chose to attend Clackamas Community College is that it allows me to remain close to my family. My parents have been married for 24 years, and they are truly an inspiration to me. They work hard to provide for our family, and they are always there to support my siblings and I in everything we do. They have taught us to never settle for anything that is just okay, but instead to push ourselves that extra mile to achieve something that we can really be proud of. I am the second oldest of 4 children, and my siblings are my best friends. We have been through good times and bad times together, and we will continue to be there for each other forever. I knew that if I were to go away to college, I would miss out on watching my siblings grow up. I couldn't imagine missing out on the football games and the tennis matches, the award ceremonies, or first dates. I not only wanted to be here for the happy times, but also for the times of hurt. I need to be here to support my family, and I need them to support me too. There have been a countless numbers of times that I have been sick or brokenhearted, and I just wanted my mom. Or after a bad day at school or practice, I needed my dad to make me laugh. Or when it seems like things are too good to be true or just absolutely devastating, I know I can count on my siblings to bring me back to reality. So when it was time for me to pick a college, I knew I would make friends wherever I went, but nobody could replace my family. My whole life, I have been the kind of student that has needed some one-on-one teacher instruction. So when I do not completely understand something, the teacher-student communication element is very important to me, and it was something I needed to consider when I was looking at schools. Here at Clackamas Community College, myself, along with the other students, have received individual help from teachers. The size of the classes are much smaller than most state schools, which makes it possible for the teachers to so generously pay attention to the personal needs of each student. Attending Clackamas Community College has also been very convenient for me. In high school, I had taken some classes that earned me some credits here at CCC. My older brother had done the same thing, but he ended up at a different college that would not take those credits. I have seen this happen to many people, not only my brother. It was nice to be able to get a head start on my college education this way. I have been fortunate enough to be granted the DeShane Wilson Scholarship now for the second year in a row. The DeShane Wilson Scholarship is designed to support students starting at Clackamas Community College and intend to continue their education beyond that at Portland State University. With this scholarship, last year I was able to focus on my education without the financial burden that most students have. My family is also very thankful to the school and my scholarship benefactors for the wonderful opportunity that I have been provided. Following CCC, I plan to attend PSU, where I would like to major in social services with an emphasis in gerontology. This would mean that I would work mainly with senior citizens and their families. I realized that I wanted a career working with geriatrics after spending a great amount of time caring for my elderly grandmother. My grandmother has been diagnosed with dementia and is steadily declining in health. About 2 years ago, I volunteered my time to care for her, and now she is in need of full-time attention. Going to school full-time and taking care of my grandmother seemed almost impossible, but I later discovered that it was easier than I could have ever imagined. Last year, I was able to take the majority of my classes online, and the classes that I came to campus for ended before noon, making it feasible to do both. Many friends felt the need to go away to school to get the full college experience, but I've later reevaluated the decision and decided that a community college was the better choice after all. The college experience is really whatever you make of it. I would like to thank the school, the scholarship committee, and most of all the scholarship benefactors for giving myself the opportunity for continuing their education. Their generosity is not only appreciated, but also inspirational. I feel an obligation to my scholarship benefactors, Michael DeShane and Karen Wilson, and CCC, to work hard to make the most of my opportunity, be a positive representative of the school, but most of all, to make it a personal goal to someday pay forward the generosity that has been given to me. Thank you.
I had the opportunity this summer to go to Machu Picchu, which was absolutely one of the most wonderful moments. And while I was there, I've always tried to. I've had great fortune to be able to travel in many different areas, and I wanted to actually pick up a musical instrument. I try to collect musical instruments, and so on my last one of my last days in Lima, I found my way to a market and kind of found a little shop. And I'd been looking for a charango. A charango's it's kind of from the lute family, but they actually made them originally out of dead armadillos. You can imagine that, just scooping them out. And I looked for an armadillo one, but you can't import them anymore. So I found a charango, and then also a zaranga, which is it's a type of Peruvian flute. So then it's time to do this musical interlude here, and people started talking about that. And so started to work up a little bit of a Peruvian thing. In the midst of that, I was thinking about the nature of the theme this year. Community is our middle name, and I've never really thought of community as an ideal to be reached. It's something that we just kind of do, and it's kind of messy and dirty. It's not this beautiful, wonderful, heavenly realm of every type of perfection. It's really the kind of the slop and the anger and the distaste, along with the joy and the happiness. And it's people coming together and trying to make things happen. And we have the little micro communities at Clackamas. I was talking to Karen Maynard in nursing, and she was all excited. She's got a new cohort of nursing students, and they're coming there for the first time. And they're going to be a community, kind of a quasi-community, because they won't live the rest of their lives together, just like I hope we don't. But they come together for a time, and we do that in departments here. You come together for a meeting or a time, and you try to make things better. Anyway, this is a piece that we're going to do. I just want to kind of thank in advance, Tom Wakeling and Brian again from the music department. This year we're kind of spread out across the college because Casey, he's from counseling in the AFAC division, and then we got a classified. Jennifer's joining us, and she's from CPR, right? And I got a new person too. She doesn't even know what she's getting into, and yet she's only been here for a couple weeks, and so. And then Scott. So we got old timers, new timers, kind of across the college. This is called Dancing in Gravity. I hope you like it.
Communities are middle name.
Dancing in gravity, seeking community.
Dancing in gravity, always reality, knowing the gravity's game. Not always perfect, but seeking community challenges everyone's progress. It's never the same. To excellence, projecting us, ephemeral. Gladstone and Wilsonville, Westland and Beaver Creek, Canby, Damascus, Paulino and Eagle Creek soar.
Many communities seeking your unity.
Clackamas, Colton, Malala, Milwaukee, and Harrison, Carver, and Venice to Happy Valley. And Estacada, and Redland, Fishersville,
And Oregon City.
In randomness,
And randomness.
it's
It's
fabulous. Serving the district, can you imagine Clackamas? But back down to earth,
Back down to earth.
no, it's not just mirth. For what it's worth, it's just the point of my careful analysis.
Dancing in gravity, dancing in gravity.
Pondering unity to light opportunity's flame.
Honoring unity with opportunity.
What does it mean to say? Community's our middle name.
Dancing in gravity, seeking community.
Dancing in gravity, always reality, knowing the gravity's game. Not always perfect, but seeking community challenges everyone's progress. It's never the same. Never the same. Never the same. Never the same.
The president of Clackamas Community College, Joanne Truesdell.
Thank you, Bill. And Tom, Mr. Rose, where are you? Can't find you. Right behind me, right behind me. Thank you. And Darlene Geiger, new to the AFAC division, Scott Giltz, Jennifer Schwartzman, of course, Bill Briare, and Casey Sims. I think this is the best part. Right after, there's no better way after last night's scholarship reception to wake up this morning and be here, only to see two students and listen to what it means for you to have connected with them. And then our colleagues get up here and have a fantastic and creative imagination, good musical skills, mostly, but I think good music. Oh, what do I know? I'm still working on, is it an A, is it a G? But great musical skills to get us off and running. And thanks to, of course, always to our board and our foundation board, because they're always behind us, around us, beside us, and in front of us, helping us do our work. Today, as I thought about community as our middle name, I want to share with you a few things that I think about how or why, as Diana talked about this morning, why do we get up? And so I'm hoping that I can frame some of that, because I think based on your stories and how you've spoken with me about why you're here, I'm hoping to have reflected that well. But also just about what's happening in our world, what our students face, what changes are happening, and how do they relate to us. I'll also share an insight, hopefully, about how I had kind of thought about it this year as I was out over the summer, and share with you a little bit of poetry. and also hopefully come to some conclusions, so that as we continue to walk together, because all of this as community does not happen if we're not walking together, and as we do our work together, and as we work with students together, that we actually can make that difference that individually we wake up to every morning wanting to make. One of the things that I loved about being here, returning to Clackamas after, what was it, I think at that time, 25 years or so since I had graduated from Clackamas Community College, my college, that without this college I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't have been anywhere. So it's really important how we are. And I realize that Mr. Adams has taken my notes. And the worst thing you want to do is turn me loose with a microphone for 40 minutes with no notes. He does that to me every once in a while. I wish I was a political pundit. There should be 97 pages. Thank you. See, they always keep me, you know, they're my bosses collectively, and they always keep me on my toes. And scare the life out of me sometimes, too. So the why part. So I want to begin by saying, you know, we didn't always exist. Community colleges are very unique to not only our country, but just our culture, our fabric of what we believe that America is about. And our origins began out of the President Truman's Commission on Higher Education for Democracy. For democracy. And in that commission, out of those reports, it really abandoned the European concept of how education was to be delivered. Some of you may know people, my mother was a product of the European system, and at 15 there was no more, there wasn't an opportunity for her after that. It also described a need for curriculum for the needs of a democracy, our country. The doubling, so here's an aggressive strategy, the doubling of college attendance by 1960, the integration of vocational and liberal arts education, the extension of free public education for the first 2 years of college, free for the first 2 years of college for all youth, and most importantly, the elimination of racial and religious discrimination that created structural barriers for people. Essentially, when they thought about who was going to do all this, what could do this for this country, it was community colleges. And it called for the establishment of even greater numbers of community colleges. It also called for the expansion of adult education programs and federal aid so that poorer states, the people who lived in poorer states, had as ample of opportunity for something different than people who lived in wealthier states. We were called to serve the unemployed, the returning GIs, educate for a skills gap that was a brand new economy emerging after World War II, eliminate those social and racial barriers, those structural barriers that kept too many people outside looking in. Essentially strengthening our democracy, applying all of our people's creative imagination and trained intelligence, I love that part, toward the solution of social problems. Ensure economic and community health. Focused in our community, we would alter the trajectory of our economy and democracy, and a place where everyone has opportunity for something different, just like our students talked about this morning. In 1966, Clackamas Community College, we began serving all of our communities that Bill sang about. And today, why we exist hasn't changed. We're still here for all of those reasons. And when we can't remember why we get up in the morning and we think about that one student, we can think about our entire community, our entire nation, and that why we were here. Fundamental. So back in 1947, a lot of other things were happening too, and We had infrastructure projects continuing, interconnections of our highways. We had sewer, we had sanitary, we had water, we had commercial air flights overseas. And then suddenly we had TVs and transistors, transistor radios. And those things began connecting us to the rest of our world more immediately. And our interconnectedness grew, and it's been driven home recently with certain examples, practically 24-hour air service, the H1N1 virus, for those of you who were here a few years ago when we had to work on that, avian flu, certainly economic interdependence across the globe. We're certainly living that. Learning is available around the clock, around the world. Collaborations are around the clock, around the globe. All these things are connecting and strengthening science. They're strengthening and accelerating and building solutions. So we no longer have a choice, like we used to think, globally, act locally. I had one of those bumper stickers. We, and in our communities context nowadays, are about thinking globally, acting globally, and ensuring that they have that opportunity. So this immediate information and the continuous coverage on political, economic, and social events, and the accompanying commentary has the ability to strengthen our relationships with our communities and our communities around the world, or polarize us. What we say matters, when we say it matters, how we say it matters, what we believe matters. Everything that we do in their commentary can either decide to unite us or incite us. When we think about what's been happening over the internet and the contrarian types of views that we see, the immediacy of it, and the fact that it just seems too frequently that more things are going across that serve to divide us than serve to unite us. So all of those things that were originally developed by the President's Commission on Higher Education for Democracy still exist today. From a federal and state perspective, as our political officials, as the people we elect look at this, post-secondary education has really become that vision, yet again, that one promise for economic recovery. From our president to our governor, the vision for increasing the number of people earning a post-secondary certificate or degree is not about doubling a diploma for doubling a diploma's sake. Each of our diplomas have very important social and technical skills that help move people forward, our economy forward, our nation forward. To support a vision of how to do this through pre-kindergarten and to baccalaureate, our new education structure in this state was legislatively changed and now is under the direction of the Oregon Education Investment Board. Our state is the first in the nation to have a chief education officer, and he is charged to develop a structure, align funding, and publish results supporting a vision that 100% of all Oregonians will have a high school diploma. At a minimum, 40% of those will have a 2-year certificate or degree, and 40% will hold at least a baccalaureate degree or higher. Currently in Oregon, 89% hold a high school diploma, 27% a 2-year degree or a 1-year degree, and 29 hold a bachelor's degree or above. So there's some work to be done. It almost is very similar to the doubling down on education in 1960, by 1960. In this world of education, the workforce is inextricably, I wish I could say that word. I practiced it a couple of times and said, you know, I probably should take that one out. Now I know it to be true. We're connected, we're interconnected. You can't have one without the other. We can argue all day about what's more important, and whether it's 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, this type of work, that type of work. In the end, there are few of us in our nation and in our world who have the luxury of just not going to work on a daily basis. Our needs are to immediately reskill people to match job requirements posted today. We have nearly 13.5 million people out of work, and we have 3.5 jobs that are open. And they remain open, and they keep remaining open until filled. And the gap is often technical. And by technical, we often think of there's something that I need to perform, a product I need to be able to weld, something I need to write. And while that's really important, more than that is also the need for employers to have people who can see problems in a very different and creative way, and to think about resolutions in a different way, and really be able to set aside their own selves and work for the common good to solve that problem. For 10 million people, though, let's say we educate those 3.5. For 10 million people, an employer may not be what is in their future. And that's where entrepreneurship and business development come in, because that's the economy, that new economy that others are going to be facing as we move forward. It's always going to be, as true as the Commission reported, the application of creative imagination and trained intelligence to solve problems. There wasn't a Steve Jobs without a Wozniak. And our role in serving the people of our district with learning experiences is to help facilitate that learning. The learning that helps them know how to learn, keep a job, get a job, or grow a job. Because our community is our middle name, our communities look to us for incredible amounts of opportunity. But there are some concerns out there that our communities face, and that many of our students face. $1 trillion in student loan debt, currently on the books. The question is it the next bubble? Will I be able to pay my debt? Especially with an economy that has structurally shifted. Will I be able to get a job? Will I be able to grow one? Will I be able to keep one once I have it? All at the same time for us as CCC, tax revenue has declined and public service funding has crashed. Costs for previous decisions keep rising. But it's all really complex. And last week I was listening to Planet Money, and David Kestenbaum set out, he decided he was going to fix the economy. I hadn't figured out, now how is it that this economy is going to get going again? How long will it take? And so I was listening to this, and he set out with a chief economist and analyst, Mark Zandi from Moody's Analytics, who has a 17,000 variable economic model. And Kestenbaum's challenge to Zandi was, we're going to drive the unemployment rate down to 5%. Currently, we learned it's 8.9% here in Oregon, so we're going to drive it down to 5% in the next 4 years. The next 4 years. So what do we have to do? And 5% is the employment rate that was here prior to the Great Recession of a few years ago. So, while there were many variables, they settled on 8 of the following. Fixing the US government with a bipartisan plan to deal with the country's debt, right? And a mix of tax increases and spending cuts. Boosting home prices by 10%. Having banks lend more money. Increasing consumer confidence to super confident. That's actually a term, I like that, super confident. That's you, Adam. Cutting the price of a barrel of oil in half. Giving Europe a spectacular recovery. Keeping China growing, and the African community and their economy take off. And even with every single one of these optimistic inputs, in 2016, The model still shows the unemployment rate will be close, but it's not quite good enough. It'll be 5.2% with all of those variables coming into play. It would take 4 years to drive it down to 5.2%. So I took a breath and wondered, okay, so what's the analysis on this? And this is what Zandy said. What's happening is the economy is reaching new limits. And then I paused again, and I'm glad that David Kestenbaum had a reaction that was similar to mine, because mine was a little bit astonished. And he says, this isn't something I had really appreciated before. When you go through a really big, catastrophic recession, it's not always possible to make things return to the way they were. Millions of people lost their jobs in the recession. At the same time, new high school and college graduates started looking for jobs. The economy just can't grow fast enough to absorb the backlog. And Zandy predicts we'll have an extra 1 million or 2 million people looking for jobs and unable to find them. We dug ourselves a big hole. It's going to take a generation to get completely out of it. That's what Zandy predicts. Grow a job, very important. Keep a job, extremely important. Find a job, learn how to learn. We're going to be in the middle of this for the next 30 years. That's our job. That's who we are as a community, and that's what our community is going to need us to do, is help them figure that out. And so this is our students' backdrop as they start this year, maybe as they finished last year, as we encounter new students. But this is why we were called. We didn't show up one day to go, oh, it's an easy job, I'll just think I'll hang out here for a while. Yeah, I know, there's some of you are laughing, that's right. You didn't think that either. Or maybe you did, is that why you're laughing? We were called to demonstrate our relevance, and we're being called even more to become and show our results and be accountable. In our communities, as our students described today, they really understand that post-secondary education remains an important part of their future. But getting their education is truly a challenge, and their challenge is very real. We tell them, and it's great advice, work hard, manage your schedule, take 15 credit hours per term, and complete in 2 years. And many embrace this. Yes, I'm going to do this. I put in the sweat equity. I'm going to be in a better position financially in the future. It's going to make a difference. And this is what it takes them to pay for that opportunity. At minimum wage, a student must work on average 36 hours per week to pay for their education at an Oregon community college. Employers with employees who work 36 hours per week have an incredible amount of difficulty juggling their students' schedules, their employees' schedules while they're a student, especially when their schedules keep shifting. And I know students who make choices between taking a test on a day or calling in sick with no sick leave and their third written warning that if they miss another day, they won't be employed. But their tests were more important. We also tell students for every hour of a class, plan on studying 2. And then we tell them that's about 45 hours a week and you'll get through just fine. And that's with a 15 credit hour allowed. 45 hours per week to learn, 36 hours to pay for learning, 81 hours per week. That's their total commitment. And on this plan, every single hour they have counts. When we administer the Community College Survey of Student Engagement, which includes includes lots of questions, and we'll be doing it again in the spring. This fall we'll be doing Sensi, so we'll get more data on our students. 40% of our students indicate they spent 5 hours or less preparing, studying, rehearsing, writing, etc. per week. 5 hours or less. When we're saying to them, to be successful, you need to have 45. 27% report they work more than 30 hours a week, and 42% more than 21 hours a week. So then we can say to our communities, well, look, we really know that a lot of students are on financial aid, students' families can help. Fair enough, let's look at those statistics. In our district, 82% of the median household income is less than $50,000 annually. That's $24 an hour. To pay for the cost of attendance, a household must dedicate $8 of every hour worked for one member to attend college full-time, keeping $16 for all remaining household obligations. And just as a side, in our district, high-wage jobs are $16.90 per hour or more. That's a high-wage job in our district. If you're a parent and a student, or a part-time student and a parent, you add in all those other parts of life, and no wonder our students are reporting they prep less and study less. And no wonder our data indicates that while many students look to degree completion as their goal, more do not complete. And those that do take longer than 3 years for our 2-year degree. So we add the possibility of taking remedial education, getting the right course at the right time to fit in with my right employer so that he can have the right schedule or she can have the right schedule so my colleagues don't have to fill in for me, so I don't have to call in sick. The future concern of paying back a student loan, the pace of economic recovery, the question of will I really get employment, and will it pay as high as a high-wage paying job of $16.90 per hour? Have I chosen the right education? Do I have the right stuff? This is all why they are looking to us for leadership and responsibility and accountability to reduce costs and accelerate learning. Even the President of the United States is concerned about the costs and desires to reduce the costs in half. We are the community's college. We are the ones that have the power, we have the authority, and we have the responsibility to embrace the realities of our communities. We can understand the structural changes, and we can be responsive in creating and applying new approaches in every area of our industry. We are looked to meet the needs of a new economy and for the cultivation of civic responsibility. Our country built us for that flexibility, that accessibility, that affordability, that accountability, and that absolute high quality close to home. The absolute shift in our students' experiences, our government's concerns over cost, and the belief in what is needed to fulfill these expectations has really refocused the locus of control away from us as individuals and individual community colleges. We are now a community college that is truly situated more in a network of 17 community colleges in Oregon and part of over 936 community colleges nationwide. You may be surprised to know that 115 are actually private independent community colleges. 31 are tribal colleges. We are also among and between all other organizations whose mission intersects with ours. There's the Oregon Workforce Investment Board, the Oregon Education Investment Board, the Oregon University System, and the Oregon Department of Education and all of our K-12 school districts. Each have their focus. Each are now more connected to each other, just like us. Each have metrics. Any may be part of any one of our students' life. And all of them intersect with us as students do their education and employment plan. And all support our community, too. We have always, this is the best part about us, we have always been among and between. That's nothing new. We've been a little more independent. We like that. I think that's what makes us great, and I think that's what makes you great. The new ideas that were generated by you over the years, generated by us, all very locally driven. In fact, so locally driven that in the morning, any one of us could have woken up and said, I got a great idea, and we get to go do it. The department could have got together and said, yeah, that sounds like a really great idea. We're going to go do that. And we all sit around and we all applaud that because that is terrific. And that's what we want to continue, right? But last night, Rudy Crew was talking about the terrific parts about what we do and we do locally shouldn't be just for the people we get to serve locally. They need to be for everyone across our institutions and everyone in our state. Because if someone else doesn't have access to that best practice that we've created, that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense any longer. We were created to reduce structural barriers, and therefore we have to make sure that all of our learning and all of our good wisdom goes everywhere, and that we get to absorb everyone else's good wisdom. We are no longer independent. Many of our students come to us with prior education experiences. If they begin with us, they may go to another community college, they may go to the university, they may be going to 3 at the same time. Changes in our state funding, in our Constitution, and how funding and responsibility on the state has elevated the interests of governors and legislators in our work. Students and policymakers see their costs going up, and unfortunately results across the board staying the same. And last year I was prone to say, well, we can do more and we can do differently and we can do better if you would just give us the funding. And then one day I'm sitting there and I get the report back that says our data just doesn't indicate that to be true. In fact, our persistence and completion rates are about the same as when we had more funding. In fact, much more funding. And unfortunately, I couldn't tell them why. I didn't know why. I can speculate. I can say student populations change. I can do all those kinds of things. People are more prepared, less prepared, but I couldn't be definitive. And that's why a lot of you are engaged in our own data cleanup and why we're really looking more at what is it that our students are experiencing, how are they connecting among and across our curriculums. What are we doing? How are we doing? So unfortunately, that kind of led to the conversation about, well, Joanne, President Truesdell, the same isn't good enough. The state and the nation, the same isn't good enough. Students' costs rise. Some make it, some don't. Isn't good enough. And in that moment, I thought, boy, howdy, I don't wake up every morning to make things more difficult for people. No matter how little funding we have, some costs rise, some students make it, some students don't, isn't good enough. And externally, we've been required to report more data. For 47 years, fall, with kickoff, marks the IPEDS, data collection time, integrated post-secondary education system. All of our institutions who receive federal financial aid, we all report in statistics on human resources, on courses, on students, it's all there. More recently now, it's displayed on the web and is made available through online search tools. And students and parents can go there and find this information. And here are a few examples of the search tools. College Navigator, the National Federal Financial Aid Application, the College Affordability and Transparency Center. They all help college students, prospective students, their parents, understand the differences between colleges, our tuition rates, our fees, our average net price, our graduation rates, our retention rates, our transfer rates for schools. And recently, federal law requires institutions where fees and tuition has increased substantially at the highest rate relative to all our peers, submit additional reporting. IPEDS is also used by external groups to publish their own reports. The U.S. Chamber recently used the data to grade Oregon community colleges with Fs in completion. So even in averaging, maybe we got an A, it's unlikely. But globally in Oregon, community colleges with an F in completion and an F in affordability, citing and reporting that the total cost of our per degree of associate's degree awarded was $90,000. Well, it isn't completely accurate. It did cause a stir. And in fact, at the legislature, when we were to go down and provide all of our information about how well we were doing, the entire time was spent asking about this report and trying to figure out and trying to convey to legislators, no, that's not really true. Let's share with you about how that data is. You can only do that so many times, it distracts from the conversation. We are also reporting at the state level high school dual credit, employment, college transfers, credit hours of completions, all of those through the Achievement Compact, state key performance measures, grant evaluations, and private donors. The amount of data related to our expenditures, our outcomes, our programs are routinely displayed, studies conducted, and conclusions made. And those conclusions influence policy direction at the state and federal level. And in turn, those policy decisions come to us in laws setting our direction. All that data means we are not as independent as we believe we are. In this increased age of reporting, broader accountability, what hasn't changed is why we were created and who we serve. What hasn't changed is why we get up in the morning. But what has changed, is changing, and will change is what we do to serve our district. It will be guided more directly at the state and federal level, in addition to what our local communities need. Now, I know, that's why I returned here, that's why I went to school here, that we want every person who comes to us to leave better prepared and ready to embrace their place in the world. And that hasn't changed for us. We want to be relevant, and we know for sure we have a fiduciary responsibility to our district. However, when viewed as an industry, we don't have outcomes that create that narrative for us. And that's why we can continue to anticipate more state and federal policies that focus our work. And that's why we also must be more diligent in focusing our work. So as I thought about my conversation with you this morning, I was on a hike on the North Umpqua Trail over the summer. And there's a person named Daniel White. He wrote, and as many of you have experienced, he wrote about our forests and they're dense and lush. And in old growth parts, if you wander in just a few hundred yards without paying attention, you can easily lose sight of all four cardinal directions. The trees are 150 feet high. Their trunks are so wide you can't see around them. It was absolutely glorious being in that forest. But while also enjoying some summer reading, I came across a poem that seemed to not only match up that forest in my hiking experience, it also kind of captured my imagination about what we face together as we join together and as we work together for our future as a college community and for our communities. And it's a poem called Lost by David Wagner, and it attempts to convey the essence of a Pacific Northwest teaching story in which tribal elders respond to a very practical question from a young boy or a young girl who is concerned about getting lost in the forest. And the elder's response: what do I do when I'm lost in the forest? Stand still. The trees ahead and the bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. Must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen, it answers. I have made this place for you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. What I appreciated about this story was I didn't get the lecture that said just don't get lost. And in fact, how normal lost or the likelihood of being lost is. And I agree with Mr. White that if we learn to pay a particular and fierce kind of attention to what is around us, as the raven, as the wren, the difference between this tree and that, this branch and that branch, we will never be lost. We have been for many years in a very familiar forest, and now we set out together to walk into a very different forest. And as we pay particular and fierce attention to our new forest, we can realize that the outcomes expected of us are truly the outcomes we have desired all along. The outcomes expected of us are the outcomes we've desired all along for our communities. We can use that realization rather than to be defensive, be able to pay particular attention to the needs of our communities as they exist right now, as we examine what they will look like. And we can lead and create how we achieve that focus locally. There is direction from the state, and I want to share with you a few that are going on. So again, we're not all lost. We are getting direction if we listen. There is a direction from the state to award credit for prior learning, provide dual credit in high schools, and increase our degree completion rates. There is a new body called the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and right now they're considering the report, the task force report to the legislature around credit for alternative learning, credit for prior learning, reducing the cost of textbooks, and adding the Western Governors University as part of a public university in Oregon. I anticipate more focused direction from state policymakers on accelerating time to degree completion, awarding credentials through tests, through examination of learning, through understanding other training and education providers, things that we didn't instruct, but by which we know how to assess proficiency, proficiency in outcomes, proficiencies in a course or a subset of courses. A little further ahead, but equally compelling in addressing the students' need to lessen the burden of cost. Open education resources, badges for learning competencies, and textbooks, all open source, all online, all available to everyone. Learning resources that are open. Last night I was listening to a program, Radio Works, driving home from the scholarship reception, and it talked about the fact that these massive online courses and these open texts, and it was amazing the words they used, are the opportunity to enhance democracy in the world, create an open and reduce barriers to all social and racial groups in order for them to have an opportunity for a higher education. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, that's what we were doing. How do we fit in here? That's what we do. Check out OpenStax and Creative Commons. These are curriculum and materials and texts for the most commonly enrolled courses. Materials developed by our colleagues around the world. Washington State just invested over $50 million to build curriculum once so that it could all be updated and open as it goes along through the life cycle of all of our courses every day. Open textbooks are being written, and they're being underwritten by very large foundations rather than publishers. $250,000 to $500,000 invested in these books. The curriculum, comprehensive, instructional materials similar to what our published textbooks are happening today, student supplemental materials, and an addition of learning analytics. Learning analytics that allow a student in the moment, not waiting for their midterm, not waiting for the test at the end of the week, to determine exactly how they're doing in the moment, at the time, with that particular discrete subject material, and providing them with an opportunity to take corrective action immediately. I don't know how many times you had to drop math, but I had to drop it so many darn times that I finally got up against the wall and had to figure out how to take it and get through it. And thank God, Mr. Streeter Hall, was there to help me through it. The other parts are that learning analytics then can come back to us as faculty and understand what parts of our materials, how we're doing our course, and learning analytics can improve our services. What is it that we need to do differently? What can I do tomorrow when I walk into the classroom to make sure my students get it, all of them, today, so that it sets them on the path for tomorrow, so that each of the competencies I want them to master in the class, they master. A few years ago, Terry Doyle, we all heard Terry Doyle, except if you were recently hired, talk about making sure that what we're not thinking about is it's an average, a class average, that an A and an F over here equals a C and that works well, and students move on. That every single thing we think is important in a class that really needs to be assessed, and we absolutely, definitively believe is a competency, is mastered. Udacity, $16 million in venture capital. Phenomenal investment from other areas. Subject experts are well paid for their contributions, and it's the public's money and considered, even with the foundation support, a public investment. And once it's posted, it can be modified by anyone over and over again, verified, strengthened, and moved on. Textbooks. The goal of textbooks is to get the cost of a textbook between $0 and $30. Think about driving the cost down. That's an incredible savings to students. So check out Creative Commons and OpenStax. It is our future. It is our future. So today's forest includes all that I have conveyed, and I know there is a lot more that I haven't. It's an absolutely fascinating time to be in education. You know, people wait 30 years, 40 years, forever, a lifetime to make a difference or to be part of a change that is so fundamentally different than how it was before. Many people get excited about that. And we have that opportunity right now. That's what we are part of. We are part of being able to take your energies and talents and be that group that provides leadership and be those individuals who create those textbooks that everyone can use. I know the quality of your work. It's phenomenal. Many of you are published. It's phenomenal. Your work's there. Your leadership there. The ability for us to have constructive conversation about how do we engage in a different way of learning? How do we serve people differently? All because when community is our middle name, it relies on us, they rely on us to serve them differently. So we really must take a moment to be lost. We simply cannot put our head down, our shoulder to the wheel, and plow through until we get to the other side of our old forest, the other side of this new forest. There simply isn't a new side. It's a new place, and it's one that calls us to step out of ourselves. And we must take the time to understand our district, the urban, the suburban, and the rural communities' needs, the half who live in the suburban urban areas and the half who live in unincorporated rural areas. We must understand our industries, agriculture, manufacturing, healthcare, the importance of technical application and academic theory in water resources, engineering, the importance of our role in creating a cultural and civic connection and development and identity with our communities. We must understand our students' identities and facilitate their learning to find the language that brings to life their creative imagination and provides them with an opportunity for that trained intelligence to support the solving of social problems. We must work to drive down costs and results up. It is an absolute, unique, and defining moment. Such a radical change hasn't been since we were created. For those of you beginning your career in service of learning, embrace our passion and compassion, our willingness to set aside ourselves, to fully participate in our communities of the future. Learn our history as Clackamas, our current ways. Honor them, but do not simply adopt them. For those of you in the middle part of your career, you are the bridge. You provide the leadership that respectfully clears away that of the old and allows for the rushing in of the new ways. Much is on your shoulders. You have the hardest work because you have become used to the way we are and now must be absolutely comfortable and committed to being different. You serve our vitality and our viability to our community now, and you will help our younger career people be that vitality of the future. And for those of us nearing the end of our careers, we must lend our wisdom and encouragement. We will not be gliding to retirement. We must bring our expertise to help strip away the complacent and work with our newer colleagues for the creation of different. All the way embracing that no matter how smart an idea was at the time, times change. And it's right and it's just to learn what was and then set it aside. Set it aside for what must be. The time we are in calls us into a very deep way to once again alter the trajectory of the world. People wait a lifetime to do this work, where the change is so touchable, where the need is so profound. This is the time. This is the time. We must stand still, listen, and treat our new world as a powerful stranger. We must engage and focus so that we see what the raven sees. No two communities the same. And we see what the wren sees. No two learners the same. For if what we see are the trees and the branches of what was, and how we used to be, we are surely lost. We are in surroundings entirely different than ourselves. And the question becomes, do we quicken our pace with the belief that we'll just get through this as fast as we can? Or do we stand still for this moment and pay attention together, find our path together, work together, and have real conversations with this new powerful stranger, this forest? So, listen. When we pay particular attention, a fierce kind of attention, we can know our way, a way that brings our existence forward and revels in a new forest. You are the best. You are the brightest. You are the most dedicated and hardworking individuals. The curriculum that you've created, the services, the change. We are leads in grants across the state. We are leads in affinity groups across the state. You are leaders in community groups. You are leaders in K through 12 conversations. You are leaders in workforce conversations. You have everything individually we need collectively to be who we want to continue to be in our world. You don't need any more pep. You've got a lot of it. You're here this year because this morning when you woke up, the one thing you knew is that students, people who have not had an opportunity to be here, are going to be here this year, and you are going to make a difference in each of their lives, just like you did yesterday, the day before, last year, and 10 years ago. So as we walk together this year, I look forward to paying an absolute and fierce attention with you. Thank you so much for being here, and now on with our Student Success Pavilion.